who argued that the bill actually infringed on their First Amendment rights. Now, I know that sounds crazy that we have to protect these big tech oligarchs' First Amendment rights, even though they blatantly censor people, but the legislature who created this bill failed to categorize these tech companies as common carriers. The bill was so poorly written, it makes people question, was it purposely written this way, and it was just a political theater thing, a stunt for these legislatures or Ron DeSantis to get behind and say, look at me, I'm fighting back against big tech, knowing that this is going to get shut down in the courts. I know it's like career suicide to make such an accusation against Ron DeSantis, to say that this bill was just political theater so that he could get an attaboy from Donald Trump and say, look, I'm going after big tech after they banned you off Twitter. But you know what? I don't really care. I don't have loyalty to any politician or anybody except for this country and the truth. And you know what? That's the same thing Dr. Shiva told me ahead of schedule, is that this bill will not hold up in court and it can be shut down by any lawyer in about 2 seconds. It's too weak and it's not going to cut it. And so now that's the perfect segue for me to talk about Dr. Shiva's lawsuit against the government and Twitter for censoring him as a senatorial candidate in Massachusetts. Now, let's remember for a second that Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas gave his dissenting opinion on a lawsuit that had to do with Trump blocking, his Twitter followers. Remember his dissenting opinion where he said that, basically it's time for Section 230 to be amended, and laying out the suggestion for big tech companies to be designated as common carriers, which would effectively eliminate their ability to ban or censor users entirely. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas basically said, bring me a lawsuit so we can deal with this big tech censorship. Now, I believe Dr. Shiva's lawsuit could be that lawsuit. And it's mind-blowing to me that it doesn't get more attention or coverage because it is essentially one of the biggest lawsuits, I think, in American history. Dr. Shiva ran for Senate of Massachusetts and believed that he was robbed in the primaries by the voting machines. So he went and requested the ballot images, and they said, well, we didn't collect the ballot images. We turned that feature within the machines off. So right there, Dr. Shiva had caught these elected officials violating federal law, which says you have to preserve all that material for a period of 22 months. Well, they said, well, we don't have them. So then he takes the email communications and starts posting them on Twitter saying, look, these people committed an illegal act. And he said his Twitter account was suspended within minutes of him sharing screenshots of public emails with elected officials that essentially admitted that they violated federal law. Now, these tweets that he was actually suspended for were fact-checked. And Dr. Shiva looked at the fact-check, read them, and within the fact-check it said, the Secretary of State's office reached out to Twitter, and he said, wait a second. Did you just say the Secretary of State's office reached out to Twitter? And then my account was banned within minutes? Okay, so you just told on yourself there. Now I know that it wasn't just Twitter who is protected by Section 230. No, Twitter was not acting independently. They were acting on behalf of the Secretary of State's office. So that violates their Section 230 immunity. This is the government infringing on my free speech as a senatorial candidate. So then Dr. Shiva immediately filed a lawsuit representing himself against the government, saying that his civil rights were violated when they silenced his political speech in order to affect an election. Now, he didn't even go after Twitter in the beginning, but that changed when he made a groundbreaking discovery. So he did a little digging, and one of the people of the Secretary of State's office actually admitted under oath that the Secretary of State had a Twitter partnership. Yes, apparently when this lady got in the hot seat, she got scared, and so she gave up the goods and said, we have a Twitter partnership. Now, what the hell is a Twitter partnership, you ask? Well, what it is Twitter has built a special portal to certain governmental entities so that government officials can actually flag and delete content that they dislike for any reason as part of what they call Twitter partnership status. Dr. Shiva went on to discover something even more sinister. He discovered 4 what are called playbooks, which are the operating manuals for suppression of speech of American citizens. These operation manuals are what they use to train their staff in controlling speech. So guys, this should scare the hell out of you because this isn't speculation. This is a fact that Twitter launders censorship to the government. The government pays for a Twitter partnership so that they can control speech and thus control the outcome of elections. Look at this, guys. This is real stuff. This was developed at Harvard. This is 4 operation manuals. The Election Influence Operations Playbook, the Election Influence Operations Playbook Part 2, the State and Local Election Cybersecurity Playbook, and the Election Cyber Incident Communications Coordination Guide. Now, Dr. Shiva has been studying the content of these playbooks, and the content is horrifying and so sinister, guys. What they do is classify people like me and Dr. Shiva as what they call influence operators, and they're instructed to assess the threat level of influence operators, and they use a 3-level scoring process. They have 3 questions. 1, is the influence operator a established voice? 2, are they a credible person? And 3, is the influence operator's message gaining traction, such as did the official receive lots of communications about their tweets? Did they get a lot of likes and retweets, etc.? And once they've answered those questions about the person, then they assess their threat level as high, medium, or low severity. Now remember, guys, I have talked to Dr. Shiva about this. I knew before this mass wage purge of censorship with this movement on YouTube, and so I knew that coding your words wasn't really going to matter. They are targeting people. They're classifying us as influence operators. And once they do, once you're on their shit list, it's all downhill from there. So then start targeting and keeping tabs on you. And they send an army of trolls/bots to come and attack you. And the people that are enrolled in the Twitter Partnership Support Program have a dedicated email server to report you whenever you're doing something that they think may be dangerous. Twitter provides the state officials with plausible deniability. This is designed to launder censorship to the government from big tech. So as Dr. Shiva says, you don't know where government ends and big tech begins. Now, he presented this to the judge, and oh man, he says this guy, he's the last living Reagan-appointed judge, right? And when he saw this, he was pissed. And so he basically suggests Dr. Shiva get a constitutional attorney and bring Twitter into this lawsuit and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Yes, the judge clearly wants this case to win, and I believe this case has a high potential to make its way to the Supreme Court when they appeal the decision. So this is something we should all be paying very close attention to. They're in the discovery phase right now, and we need to be keeping tabs on this lawsuit. I really just wanted to make this video to put all this information together and present it to you guys because I don't have all the answers. I don't know what we need to do to combat big tech. I just think that there's power in numbers and we should start working on this collectively together. What do you think we should do about big tech censorship, and how should we approach this situation? Or should we just hit it from all angles all at once? What do you guys think? Please leave your comments down below. But anyways, that's